What's going on, everybody? It's Frito here for your Overwatch. For this week's Best Heroes tier list, bans came in last night. McCree, Widowmaker, Wrecking Ball, and Mercy are out. Hold on a second. These look kind of familiar. Even Hammond seems to be noticing that something is up. So unfortunately, we're not going to see a world where Echo exists in a pool with McCree and Widow back in. However, Mercy being out for the week is potentially as impactful to lower the power of Echo as having the best hit scans being against her. But we'll get into that. There's sort of two ways I want to talk about the hero roster in today's video. There's the entire scope of everything, all the heroes, what you should be considering playing, but also the reality that with Echo back in the pool, you're going to be playing against her quite a lot, regardless of where she actually is in power level, right? So to prepare you to deal with Echo in a world where Reinhardt comps are back, let's discuss that interaction, because interestingly enough, in the mid fight, I think Rein is really strong up against Echo, and here's why. We all know Rein is the strongest tank, right? He can go in deep, hold his ground, and put down a lot of hurt on the enemy team, unlike any tank in the game right now. Because of that, it typically requires a powerful brawler hero on the enemy team to stop the rushdown from running you over. This is what makes McCree such a strong hero. Plays with his own Rein, pressures the enemy, and that flashbang really adds a ton of control in the mid fight. The problem with Echo is that she either pokes or follows up with damage. She doesn't have that sort of positional zoning out control staying power of the likes of McCree. She maneuvers around the fight and can add bursts of damage and finish targets off, but with a shield in her way half the time and with the speed that Rushdown plays, I think she looks a lot like Sombra, where Sombra gets whatever positioning she wants, right? Great, she's behind you, peppering you down with damage, but the easy answer to beat that is to just run over the rest of her team. Maybe she gets a hack off or something, but what does that really do when they're all around your team focusing them? You need a way to say no and stop them from doing that, otherwise you just lose. So in that way, I think Echo is going to be quite weak this week, but conversely, in the ultimate phase, Echo copying Reinhardt is possibly one of the strongest duplicates in the entire game. And we have yet to see it in ranked play because it was banned the first week Echo was available. And why is that? Well, of course, the best targets for Echo to duplicate are ones that invoke the most fear in you when they teleport into the middle of your team. Either because they're so brawly, or they do so much damage, or positioning one of their ults is just devastating. Reinhardt is all three of those things. A ton of health, a lethal hammer, and I mean, jumping out of the sky with a Rein pin to a swing to an earth shatter in a second. Echo copying Rein, when you have a good setup, is going to be a free ult fight, I think a huge percentage of the time, unless the enemy Ana sleeps you or if the geometry of the map doesn't allow you to do that. So that's how that interaction I think is going to play out, and it'll be interesting to see how players adapt through the week. Which element holds a stronger grip on what wins the game? Do ults win the game more, or is there just enough mid-fight in the game for that not to matter? It's sort of like Dragon Blade, right? Where even in an ideal scenario, you have no answer to Blade, and it wipes your team every time. If you just win enough mid-fights over the course of an entire payload with multiple checkpoints and a lot of team fights over time, is it just inefficient? That's my question. I'm not exactly sure. And furthermore, overall, without Mercy, I'm skeptical on the ceiling that Echo has. But if you do find yourself struggling up against Echo players, here's the picks that I think are going to do the best against her. Remember, we want to pick heroes that are going to have the lowest immediate impact when she uses duplicate on them. For tanks, I'd say Orisa and Winston. The barriers zone her out. Winston can chase her down, and Holtz can punish her peeking out, even midair, in order to set up to kill her. And when you duplicate those tanks, it's added value, but it isn't like an immediate threat that's going to definitely kill you. All duplicates can work in the right context, but I would say those are some of the lowest I win button tank duplicates. As far as DPS goes, you will want to be picking Ashe, or I think even better, Soldier. Reason being, there isn't Mercy. And I don't believe the head hitbox reduction has gone through yet. That's on the PTR still. So because of that, peppering damage towards Echo's massive head hitbox is going to be quite easy as Soldier, and because he can AD strafe and doesn't scope up when he's shooting, he's a little bit harder to surprise with Echo's lurking dive bomb playstyle, jumping out from vertical cover with sticky bombs and focusing beam, whereas if Ashe gets hit by that, it's a bit tougher for Ashe in my opinion, and just in general, without Mercy in the pool, I think Ashe is just a bit weaker overall anyway. Keep in mind that Soldier sights actually looks like a pretty decent ultimate fit into Echo as long as she doesn't have duplicate. Heroes I suggest you avoid up against Echo is going to be Torbjorn. You might think that the turret zones her out, but with her completely free movement, her range damage just kills the turret for free every time. I wouldn't pick Torb. Brigitte, just like up against Pharah, is going to have troubles up against Echo. I don't think it's as directly severe, and maybe you can ignore her a little bit, but sort of as Samito explained in our Echo meta discussion video, Echo should never feel the need to get hit by anything Brig does and can just kind of farm her. So you want to pick support heroes that either can shoot up or escape her dive bombs. So now with that introduction out of the way, let's look at the entire hero cast. Where do I even place Echo in terms of power level? Well, perhaps not as high as you think. With Mercy, I think she can be a dominant meta force, but without her, I don't think she's very good. Still in tier 1 though, just because her skill ceiling is so high, but I think once we all learn how to counter her and do some of the things that I talked about earlier in the video, you'll start to realize the limits of her potential when you stop playing into what enables her. And when that happens, much more direct damage dealers with straightforward playstyles that don't require as much effort are gonna look a bit better. I do think she is better than Genji because she's more flexible, but not as good as the likes of Doomfist, who just very reliably gets picks. Now, keep in mind, with the bans in for the week, I think it's great for Doomfist on all accounts. Mercy was one of the best picks up against Doom because, well, she flies in the air, makes it hard for Doom to kill her at all, and Doom's playstyle of going in, getting a pick, and getting out and resetting for a bit always made for these open opportunities for Rez to just outdo and outpace Doom's biggest play. Well, that's out of the pool. Yes, you do have Moira to escape from him, but simply escaping once doesn't delete his value in the same way Mercy does. McCree, Widow were some of the biggest things that were keeping Doom in check. Widowmaker avoiding Doom and outpacing the picks he can get with just lines of sight, and McCree adding more brawl damage as well as a stun to punish Doom. And with the Hammond ban, all three archetypes of Overwatch team comps are back: Dive, Rushdown, Brawl, and Double Shield Bunker, and Doomfist can play in all of them. He does have weak matchups up against Reaper and Echo as well. Duplicating Doomfist can be nasty, but against most other things, I think you'll find that the way this pool has shaped out has been quite favorable to him in a variety of contexts. Tracer, Torb at the bottom of tier 1 both have good interactions, either being enabled by your own Brigitte or, in Torb's case, countering Rally as well as Tracer, and is one of the stronger brawl options, pretty good against Doomfist and Reaper as well. And I think both of them benefit with hit scans being gone, especially McCree, who either stunned Tracer or outpoked with accuracy in the case of McCree and Torb, but Mercy being gone means that ranged poke is just a bit harder to play. It's got less impact. The only straight up pickoff hero is going to be Hanzo, and I think he's just a bit slow. He doesn't drop down into the avoid slot for me, but with shielding being lower, you might think, well, that means then Hanzo has a bigger room to shine, but oddly enough, it's sort of the opposite, where just like Junkrat, when both teams have less shields than they used to in the old version of barriers, characters that are good at shield break and pressuring down front lines most of the time have lower value. But Hanzo has favorable matchups up against Torb, Soldier, decent against Reaper and Mei, so if you're good enough, you can consider him. I'm kind of seeing Genji as a budget Echo right now. He has a very similar playstyle with just less flexibility. Perhaps his ult charges a bit faster and he adds a bit more sustain to the team, being able to reflect in order to make space so your team can get in, which Echo does not do. But other than that, Echo's ultimate is just more reliable, even if Dragon Blade with a nano boost has a higher ceiling. I think you feel more all in on it playing as Genji as opposed to Echo, who can do a lot of the same things but have the flexibility to adjust to whatever tendencies the other team is doing to counteract you. And I think is just easier to play in the mid fight, either with her freedom of movement or with just sort of the ease of use of her mid-range bombing playstyle. And Sim is a lot higher than you may have anticipated. Well, reason being, she counters Mei, and I think you will find teams running double shield or very slow barrier-heavy playstyles, and in those cases, she can be good. Also, she sort of plays that rushdown playstyle, right? Like, Echo can float around her and bomb her team, but if you rush in too fast and protect her from that angle, she's gonna ramp up more damage quicker than Echo can, in my opinion. though you will find her weak to the likes of Doomfist and not good against dive. But with Mercy gone, I think people are really going to be hesitant to play Pharah at all anyway. So because of that, I think Sim has an avenue to come in. On the avoid list, there's more heroes than you may have anticipated. Ashe, I think, really only has a good matchup up against Echo this pool, and Soldier, in my opinion, is just straight up better. Junkrat and Sombra struggle to find any use normally, and with Wrecking Ball gone, their disables have even less value. And although if the enemy does go a straight brawl setup, you could pick Pharah to counterpick them, but without a Mercy on either side, I think Echo almost alone, if not Echo and Soldier together, are just too easy to be swapped to make Pharah feel impossible to play. And Bastion really is only good against Doomfist, I guess. And in the same way that Echo gets free angles against a Torb turret, well, she really does against Bastion as well. You can imagine Focusing Beam being a great finisher to destroy him. She's sort of like if Junkrat could fly all the time in that case. Don't set yourself up to have an Echo duplicate you as Bastion, falling down from the sky in turret form, mowing down your entire team, and then transforming into tank. I think that's just a team wipe waiting to happen. Now, as far as the tank setups, I really found it hard to demote anything to tier 2. Diva and Hog are kind of bringing up the rear in tier 1. Consider them matchup specific, fairly weak up against Echo as well. Their value really slams out when duplicated. I've got Zarya higher than I normally do, and that's because some of the best heroes in the entire game that can counter Zarya are gone. Wrecking Ball diving your backline with a Mercy supported damage amp on a Pharah, or a Widowmaker with a line of sight out in the distance, starving you for energy, not shooting your bubbles, and just pinging your head off from an off angle. These are things that are just out of the game now. So Zarya's a pick that can work a lot of the time, and I think she's a bit of an overrated Echo duplicate target as well. Yeah, you can swap to her, get in the middle of the team, brawl it out, get a grab. The problem is, I think it needs to be a messy fight in order for that to work, and if the enemy has a shield alive, that can get wrecked really fast, whereas duplicating Orion, for example, allows you to just pin in deep or go in and swing and cleave, and I think it's just a much faster, more straightforward route to value. And Zarya combos well with all the best brawler heroes that want to press W this week and adds a lot of that frontline damage that the likes of Echo are going to struggle to keep up against. Rein's the best tank in the game. I don't think Echo duplicating to carry a fight is going to be enough to dissuade you from picking Rein when he's so good all the time otherwise, but just keep an eye out for that. Sigma's a bit lower on the list due to his poor matchup up against Doomfist, and I don't think he's too great up against Echo either, but he holds his own up against the likes of Reaper and Torb, and can be a decent counter pick to heroes that I don't think are very strong, but you might see. Ashe, Junkrat, and Pharah, he can zone out. But with McCree and Widowmaker gone, the need of double barrier is just a little bit lower. Rein Zarya will do the trick most of the time. Dive Comp has the weakest stats right now, but I think because Winston is so good against Echo and has a lot of counterplay up against double barrier, he still has a place, but Doomfist, Reaper, May still are going to dissuade you from picking him most of the time, and he and Dive Comp in general sort of relegated to counterpick status most of the time. Last up is the supports. Moira back in the pool. Ana didn't go anywhere. This doesn't really change from what we've spoke about in the last few weeks, other than Brig being lower down the list just because of how weak she is to Echo. I will say, playing with an Echo, you could consider Zen, though I still don't think he's very good, but skill depending, and if your entire team can protect you, which is a huge liability, I gotta say, Zen can kind of emulate a budget version of Mercy's playstyle in combination with Echo, but I don't think the reward is worth the risk. For most situations, Lucio, Ana, or Moira are going to deal with all the matchups we talked about today, and although this tier list might look similar to ones I've done recently, I'm more bullish on the tier 2 picks, as I think BAP is one of the better answers up against an Echo. Lamp can save a teammate from dive bomb coming in, and with his hit scan primary fire, he can pressure her out of the sky quite easily when the enemy doesn't have a Mercy pocketing it. So he's better than he's been in weeks in the past. Just otherwise, he sort of lives up to his internal code name at Blizzard when he was in development, Gadget. He sort of got a lot of gadgets, but that kind of pales in comparison in the more straightforward value of the tier 1 supports, who either enable the top tier meta playstyle brawl to work or defend you up against it. Both Lucio and Ana, with their cooldowns, do both. They enable you to brawl, but also get you away from the enemy running you over, or sleep or anti sort of similar to how McCree would punish something from pressing W onto you. Moira is as stable and as efficient as she always has been until Fade on a 6-second cooldown gets nerfed. I don't see that changing. They'd have to either make her heals even worse than they already are, or change Fade, which I think is the best escape in the game right now, perhaps only second to Reaper's Wraith form. She's definitely not going anywhere with the likes of pick-off playstyles like Widowmaker or Mercy damage amping an Ashe, for example, going away. With that being the case, there's gonna be a lot of sustained damage going on, with only really Doom being the strongest one-hit kill type character. So because of that, Moira is gonna have a lot of healing to do and some very fast coalescence charge coming through. Well, guys, that's everything for this week's tier list video. I hope you did enjoy it and found it useful. If you did, please be sure to leave it with a like. It really does help us out and let us know that you're enjoying the content. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and hit the bell icon to actually get notified when our videos go live. Link to the description is our Twitter, where we tweet out news updates and dank memes. That's been it for me. I've been Frito for Your Overwatch. See you guys next time.